Hello and welcome to episode 123 of the Datapack tutorial series. Take note, we're in version 1.21.4. We're going to be making a spotlight trap. Let's have a look. There's my spotlight. I'm just using an arm stand because it's just a concept. So probably want to use a marker or something. And basically, when we go into the spotlight, we'll run a command. When we're in the spotlight, we'll run a command. And when we leave the spotlight, we'll run a command. Okay, so that is the basic description of what we're going to be doing. We're going to make two versions though. We're going to be doing this version. You can see we've got entered when we got caught by the spotlight. We've got in as we're in it, and we've got left as we came out of the spotlight. We're also going to do a simpler version which just checks when you go in. Okay. For the more complicated version, the one I just demonstrated, we'll be using the same technique that we used for Galsergi's Mega Shield in episode 103. So there'll be a description, probably a better description of that in that episode. But let's get on and build it now. Okay, here we are in VS Code. Let's start and see what folders and files I've got. So inside my namespace function, I've added the folder Spotlight and the folder Spotlight Alt, because we're going to be doing two different versions. Inside Spotlight, we have in Spotlight, summon stand. And inside Spotlight Alt, we have in Spotlight Alt, leave Spotlight check. And we're going to be using the load and the tick as well. To be fair, summon Spotlight and summon stand could be moved out into a separate function like admin. In fact, why not? Let's do that. Let's create a new folder. Let's put them into admin. And we'll take those two and we'll just put them in there. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Right, I think we'll start with the load. And we're going to have a couple of scores for checking if they go into the spotlight. We'll have scoreboard, objectives, add, and we'll say in spotlight, which will be a dummy. And I'm going to copy that, paste it again, and this will be in spotlight. Copy. So we've got two. Save that. Bye-bye. I think probably let's do summon spotlight and summon the stand. Okay, let's do summon stand. As I say, this is just a temporary thing that I'm using to move the spotlight around. You can teleport it left and right, or on the X and the Z, or on the Y if you want. On the Y looks pretty strange, so I don't advise that. Let's do execute at S, so the person who's running the command, align to the XY, or the XZ, run summon armor stand, because I want it in the center of the block, that's why I'm aligning it to the X and Z, and then moving it to the center with the 0.5. And let's give it a tag. Tags equals, we don't really care, this is just for testing, so we'll say rot for rotation. Let's save that. Let's go back. Let's go and find a space. I'd like it to be in line with this, please. Let's stand here. So if we stand sort of off to the edge, we'll do a reload. We'll do function, summon stand. And you can see that's the block I was on. So it's aligned it to the X and the Z down here. And then it's moved it by 0.5, 0.5. So it's centered on the block. Okay. That's it. Let's also do summon the spotlight. This is probably the longest, most complicated command because we've got all the transformation information, but let's summon a text display. We don't really care where we summon it because it's going to be teleported. So what should we do? Let's just say at those coordinates. We might have to lift it up a little bit. We'll just make it now. We can play with the coordinates later. We'll give it an interpolation duration, which we'll set to 1. We'll give it a teleport duration, which we'll set to 1. We'll set its alignment, which I believe, yep, center. Oh, hello. If we're going to put things in, we should separate them with commas. There we go. Alignment center. We should have some tags as well. Let's just call it spotlight. Now it doesn't have to be a spotlight because we're going to choose a color for it. You could choose a dark color and then it'd be more of a scary shadow. So this is where we're going to choose the color. Background. And the color I'm going to go for, because I know it works out as sort of white, is 16944988815. Have I got my color right? 1694498. Oh, look, even in here. You letting me pick the color? Okay. Yeah, look, it's all the way up there, right in the sort of the white area. And we've got opacity turned down. So that's pretty cool little advantage. Okay, you can get colors like this from MC Stacker as well. So we've done the background. Now we have the transformation. Inside there, we are going to have some left rotation. And for left rotation, we're going to use the axis. So let's open and close curlies. Inside there, we'll say axis, open and close square. After that, we'll have an angle, which will be in radians. And we'll say 4.71. 4.71. And we're going to rotate, let's say 1 on the X, nothing on the Y, nothing on the Z. Okay, so that's left rotation done. Let's come out of left rotation. Yep, and let's do right rotation. And for this one, we'll just have the default 0F, 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 1F. And then we'll need a scale. Oh, scale. You can play around with the scale whatever you like. The scale, I wanted it to be exactly 2 blocks by 2 blocks. And I found the scale that works for that is 16F. And 8F and 0F. Yeah, 0F. Okay, so that's my scale. Now we'll need a translation. And our translation is going to be minus 0.2, 0F, 1.0F. Okay, no F on the minus 0.2. There we go. So that's good. Let's come out of transformation. Let's add some brightness. Brightness is not square, brightness is curlies. There we go. And we'll say the sky is 15 and the block is 15. And we need to put, I think in the newer versions, you have to have some sort of text. Otherwise, it doesn't even display the thing. So for text, I will say text, 2 apostrophes, 2 speech marks. And basically, we're just going to put a space in there. So let's save that. Let's go back and let's do a test. Now, we might not see it. We might do. Summon Spotlight. Is it in the ground there somewhere? There it is. So because we haven't lifted it up at all, it's just inside the ground. Now we don't really mind about that because when we start teleporting it, we're going to be lifting it up anyway. So it's down there. Right. I think the next thing to do is start it spinning around, really. So let's go to tick. Check the player in the spotlight. Okay, well, we'll do that. Let's execute as all players at that player. Run function in spotlight. Okay, in there we're going to check if it's in the spotlight. This is going to be the alternative one, so we'll leave this for now, and then we'll move the spotlight. So let's just rotate the armor stand first. Execute as any entity whose type equals armor stand, whose tag equals rot, and itself. Run TP yourself. 1, 2, 3, same X, Y, Z, but we'll change the rotation on the, is that the yaw? And we'll leave the pitch the same. So that, if we save that, let's go back and do a reload. Okay, he's spinning around. Now all we need to do is say, teleport the text display in front of it. Okay. So let's do that as well. So we'll execute again. In fact, we'll copy all of that. Execute as entity type, armor stand tag equals rot at s run. Let's copy that. But this time we are going to teleport any entity whose type equals text display, whose tag equals spotlight, and we're going to rotate it using carrots. And the last one is in front of. No, yes, the last one is in front of, so we'll say 5 in front, and we'll just lift it up a little bit as well, 0.01. That'll bring it out the ground. So let's save that, or let's go back and do a reload. Whoop, just saw it behind me, there it is. Okay, so if you want it to go slower, you can change the speed it's rotating here. If you want to go faster, make that number higher. It's probably going to be a bit fast. I wouldn't want to try and... Oh, that's not too bad, actually. Yeah, that's okay. Right, now we just need to know if we're inside it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop back in here. I'm just going to stop it rotating for the moment. And I'm going to put a particle... In fact, actually, let's do this at the arms. Let's do this at the text display. Let's copy that. And we'll do execute at any entity run particle flame. Let's save that. Let's go back. Let's do a reload. Now we can see that the text display is right in the center there. So if we came out one block this way, we're going to be at the edge, one block this way at the edge. So we can see to get to a corner, we have to minus one block on each of the Z and X. That's cool. And then if we do a DX check, DX0 would be one block, so it would check to here. DX1 will be 2 blocks, so it'll check to here. So what we can do is come to one of these corners and do a DX and DZ check of 1 and check that entire square. That's why we wanted this centered. Okay, so let's get rid of that. We'll leave it commented out just in case we want to see it again, and let's get it spinning again. Let's save that. Now, let's do in Spotlight. So let's go off there. In Spotlight, here we go. Reset the player's score. Okay, scoreboard, players, reset, all players, in Spotlight. Set the score to 1 if the player is in the Spotlight. I've put remove, so that's why that's not happy. There we go, reset. Set the score to 1 if the player is in the Spotlight. Okay. So we're currently... Let's do execute at any entity whose type equals Minecraft text display, tag equals spotlight, positioned -1 on the X and -1 on the Z. So remember the flame was in the middle and we wanted to go one of the corners. So we're going -1, -1 to take us to one of the corners. Who are we running this in Spotlight as? Tick. We're running it as any player at the player. Okay. So we could probably do as at S. And then we'll say dx equals 1. We'll say dy equals 1 as well. You might want that to be higher because you might be able to jump out of that. So you might be able to jump over the spotlight. dz equals 1. And we will run scoreboard players set at S in Spotlight to 1. Now we'll run a command if the score is higher than the copy. Okay, so execute as S at, well, we're already doing that, aren't we? We're already executing as the player at the player, so execute if score at S in Spotlight is greater than at S in Spotlight copy. run say in Spotlight. Okay, and now we'll set the copy of the score to the score. So how do we do that? Scoreboard, players, operation at S in Spotlight copy equals at S in Spotlight. Let's save that. Well, let's go back. Let's do a reload. We'll go, woof, off it goes. Maybe I shouldn't have made it so fast. Whoop, in Spotlight. Okay, so I got caught. Can I dodge it? Oh, in Spotlight. So that's a simple one. If you just want to say, right, the spotlights hit you, you're going to be teleported back to the beginning of the maze or beginning of dodging the guards, whatever. That's all you need. Let's do an alternate version as well. Okay, let's go back to VS Code. Right, we're not going to be using in Spotlight anymore because we're going to make a new version. So let's close that down. We do need to edit the tick. Let's start at the beginning. Let's start with doing the load because we're going to use a different score. Let's keep it separate. So let's do scoreboard, objectives, add. What should we call this? We'll call it in Spotlight dot timestamp, and it'll be a dummy. Okay, let's just get that correct. In Spotlight dot timestamp dummy, that'll do. Save that. Okay, now let's go to the tick, and we'll turn off this one we're using here. We're not going to use that anymore. We'll create a new one. So we're going to execute at any entity whose type equals Minecraft text display, whose tag equals Spotlight, positioned, and you can see we're doing that position check again. Okay, as any player whose dx equals 1, whose dy equals 1, whose dz equals 1, run function, and we'll go to the alt, in Spotlight alt. Let's run that one. Okay, let's save that. In Spotlight alt. So we're going to store the game time. Execute, store, result. As a score, if we need a fake player, let's just call them this. In Spotlight timestamp, run time query the game time. Okay, now let's check when we're entering the Spotlight. Execute, unless score at S in Spotlight timestamp is greater than or equal to fake player this in Spotlight timestamp, run say entered. Okay, now we'll do a check for if they are in the Spotlight. Execute if score, and we want at S in Spotlight timestamp is greater than this in Spotlight timestamp, run say in. For a better explanation of how this works, like I said in the intro, you can check out episode 103, The Mega Shield by Gal Skirgy, and I'll go through this in a bit more detail in that one. Update the player's timestamp. Okay, scoreboard, and so it's going to be the players, operation at S in Spotlight timestamp equals this in Spotlight timestamp. And now we're going to add 2 scoreboard players add at S in Spotlight timestamp, and we'll add 2 to that, and we'll schedule the check. Schedule function leave Spotlight check. That's not the right one, is it? That's just not the right one. Leave Spotlight check, and we'll schedule that for 2 ticks and append. Save. Okay, let's go off to... Oh, we got an error in there. What have we done wrong in there? Oh, at. Execute at any entity. I think that's probably what we need there. There we go. Save that. Let's do Leave spotlight check. There we go. I got confused. Store the game time. Okay. Execute. Store the result as a score. Fake player this. Timestamp. Run time. Query the game time. And now let's send a message to the player. Execute. Who's this running as? Let's have a look. This is scheduled. So it's not running as anyone. If you schedule a function, it forgets all the context. It doesn't know who it's running as. It doesn't know where it's running. Okay. So we'll execute as all players if score at S in spotlight timestamp equals this in spotlight timestamp. Now I'm going to put at S run say left. Now obviously for just saying left in chat I don't need the at S, but maybe you wanted to do something, maybe you wanted this to run a function instead and you wanted to do something at the player, so don't forget that you might need to use at S. Okay, that seems good. Let's save it. So with tick is now running spotlight alt. Spotlight alt is doing our check. Yeah, okay, let's go and have a look. Let's do a reload. Might be a bit fast. Whoop, nope, there we go. Entered, in, and left. Tell you what, I'm going to slow it down. Let's go to the tick. Where's our rotation? Let's slow that down to 2 again. Save that. So now, this is a bit overkill. If you just want to check if they enter the spotlight, this is a bit overkill. But maybe you want to do something like, you know, they stay in it, constantly running a function while they're in it. And then, oh no, you left it. Sorry. Now you're going to be punished. So maybe now this is harder. Maybe the room is dark and they have to stand in the spotlight to get from one side of the room to the other, or the monsters in the dark catch them. What you could do, I suppose, if you could have multiple of these and they intersect each other. So you have to run into one and then you go jump into another one, and who knows? You can play around with it as much as you like. Okay, but that is it. That is my little spotlight trap concept. I quite like it. I quite like it. Anyway, take care. Have a great day. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.